Chapter 25 Swan Song. The summer of 1890 was drawing to a quiet close. The Blackthorns, the Burkes, and the surrounding townships had all settled into a gentler, more peaceful rhythm after the terrifying events of early spring. Now comfortably settled within Blackthorne East, Master James and Master William were enjoying their growing brotherhood, their quiet companionship, and their many plans for the coming school year. Meanwhile, the Burkes had settled happily into their more prosperous life at Rose Glen Cottage, and little Sarah looked forward to the beginning of the new school term with great excitement. Lord Blackthorne and Roger Burke were also spending increasingly amounts of time together overseeing the Blackthorne lands, and Burke proved exceptionally capable in his new responsibilities. Constance had also begun taking a more active role alongside Miss Butterfield in assisting with the domestic affairs of Blackthorne, and the household was running remarkably smoothly. James and William were, of course, inseparable, and had comfortably settled into their daily routine, morning breakfast together, their investigative studies until noon, and afternoons spent either visiting the Burkes or slipping away to their secluded spot near the lake, where they watched the swans and quietly discussed their hopes for the future. James was at times overcome by a quiet melancholy. The growing pressure of one day becoming the heir and future Earl of Blackthorne, and eventually marrying and fathering children, was not the life he envisioned for himself. James was also beginning to recognize that his feelings toward William ran far deeper than ordinary friendship, and the realization unsettled him. He observed other boys in the village, some already 14 or 15 with young sweethearts, and a few even informally promised in future marriage arrangements. The very thought of such expectations filled him with a deep sense of unease. James was gradually becoming something of a nonconformist. He cared less and less for the opinions of society, and felt increasingly determined to think as he pleased, pursued the studies that fascinated him, dress in the manner he preferred, and ultimately follow the path his own heart envisioned. Another development unsettled James deeply. Molly Muddle, a pretty blonde girl from a farm near Rose Glen, had become quite obviously sweet on William. She had begun stopping by almost daily, asking after him, and often brought small gifts of homemade biscuits and sweets. William, for his part, seemed to enjoy the attention, and had begun giving her a measure of notice in return. What if William and Molly started courting? The thought of it made James very anxious. One afternoon, James found himself unexpectedly and intensely unsettled. William, who had promised to meet him at the lake, had instead gone to Rose Glen, where he was laughing and sharing biscuits with Molly. James could hardly contain his frustration. He strode directly to Rose Glen without pausing to greet Sarah or Mrs. Burke. "William," he said sharply, "you promised you would meet me at the lake for our studies, and instead I find you here eating biscuits with this farm girl." William's expression tightened with irritation. "James, that isn't very kind. Molly was thoughtful enough to make these raisin and oatmeal biscuits." Molly offered a small, polite smile. "Master James, please do have one." "No, thank you," James replied coolly. "Our chef can prepare something rather more refined." William frowned, clearly displeased. "James, that was not very gentlemanly of you." "Gentleman? Gentleman," James explained. "A gentleman keeps his word and honors his commitments. He does not squander his time idly socializing with a mere farm girl while others are kept waiting." William's frustration sharpened. "James, I am warning you. You are being extremely rude. If you continue, I'm going to have to knock some sense into you." "Oh, really?" James shot back. "I'd like to see you try." Before James quite understood what was happening, William had struck him sharply across the face. James recoiled, and for a moment the atmosphere shifted into something volatile and unsteady. Molly, startled and frightened, cried out for help. "Mrs. Burke! Mrs. Burke, come quickly!" Mrs. Burke came running out of the house. "Good Lord, boys, stop this at once!" "William, stop! Master James, what on earth is going on?" As Mrs. Burke stepped in to separate the boys, James made a sudden, uncoordinated movement and accidentally struck her along the jaw. "Oh my God, Mrs. Burke, I am so sorry." James broke down in tears and, overwhelmed with shame, ran off toward the lake. James' heart felt as though it had fractured under the weight of everything that had occurred. He had never known loneliness so sharply before. It seemed as though no one around him could possibly understand the nature of what he was feeling, but James understood, even if only in fragments. He loved William, and suspected quite fearfully that he might never love a girl in the same way. The thought that one day he might lose his closest friend and companion was the most frightening idea he had ever known. James even found himself thinking that this feeling was worse than Silas Grudge firing a bullet at him, or the terror of stopping an assassin. James felt utterly alone. What if William did not feel the same way? What if he had misread their friendship, mistaking only affection for something deeper? And what if his parents discovered what he was beginning to feel and rejected him for it? The pressure became too much to bear. That night James did not return home. He suspected William might look for him by the lake, so instead he wandered alone in the hidden glens he knew well, places where he was certain no one would think to search. At approximately 6 o'clock in the evening, the Burkes called upon the Blackthornes. Master William was with them, bloodied and cut, while Mrs. Burke bore a bruise upon her cheek. The Blackthornes were in the midst of changing for dinner when Pritchard escorted the Burkes into the blue room. Master William felt deeply embarrassed and hurt by the fight with Master James, his closest friend. He withdrew into himself, ashamed and quietly unsettled by what had taken place. Beneath that, there was fear as well, fear that this incident might mark the end of his education, or that he had somehow jeopardized his family's position, that Lord Blackthorne might withdraw his support for his schooling and his place at Blackthorne. When Lady Blackthorne entered the blue room, she was visibly shaken. "Constance, what on earth has happened to you and Master William?" William began to cry. Lady Blackthorne quickly softened her tone, sensing it was likely a quarrel between the boys. She brought him a glass of water and said, "Darling, arguments and disagreements happen. There is no need to be afraid. We will wait for Lord Blackthorne, and then you can tell us what had occurred." Lord Blackthorne entered the blue room and came to an abrupt halt, visibly shocked. "What on earth?" He turned sharply. "Constance, my dear, your face is already bruising quite badly. And Master William, what is the meaning of this?" William was visibly shaking. "Sir, something terrible has happened, and my behavior was unforgivable. You see, Molly from a nearby farm was kind enough to bring my family and me some oatmeal biscuits. They were very good, sir." He hesitated, struggling to steady himself. "I think she is rather fond of me, and she is a very kind girl, but I do not think of her in that way. Only we have become friends. I made a promise to James that I would meet him at the lake for our studies, and I failed to keep it. It was not intentional. I was simply caught up spending time with Molly and with my mother and Sarah." William's voice wavered as he continued, but James was furious. "He came to Rose Glen, and I felt he was being very rude to me and unkind to Molly. I said things I should not have said, and then before I quite knew what was doing," he broke off, terrors rising, "I struck James, sir. I truly did not mean to hit him so hard, but he struck me back, and then everything became overwhelming. Mother tried to separate us," William continued, voice breaking, "and James, he accidentally struck her. He ran off then, ashamed and in tears, and we have not seen him since. Sir, you must believe me when I say I would never wish to hurt James." William added, his voice trembling, "He is my best and only true friend. I do not understand why he became so angry with me." Roger gave a faint, restrained laugh under his breath. "Lord Blackthorne, might I have a word with you in private?" The men excused themselves and moved down the corridor toward the smoking room. Neither of them smoked, but it was the most secluded space in the house, far from the servants' reach and any prying eyes. Roger spoke first. "Does this sound familiar? At their age, did we not have a similar quarrel when Adelaide Gale began making eyes at me?" Lord Blackthorne gave a short, surprised laugh. Good heavens, I was furious. I struck you quite hard, and nearly broke your nose, if I recall correctly. Roger spoke quietly. Hardly, but yes, I remember. He paused before continuing. John, it is understandable. Like us, our boys have found a deep friendship and companionship, and for all the pressures placed upon an heir to the earldom, we both know they have been unto each other rather lonely and unsettled. Roger looked at Blackthorne with quiet tenderness. It was much the same for us at their age. Without your friendship and our shared interests, my own childhood would have been rather miserable. Blackthorne exhaled slowly. Oh, dear Roger. After the assassination attempt and everything that happened with Silas, my son must be very frightened, terrified of losing William, or even of us for that matter, and of being left alone. He paused and added more quietly, Do you think that is only natural? Blackthorne's voice softened, emotions breaking through his usual composure. Roger, when I heard you had to go into hiding because of the burglary accusation, all I could think of was my very best friend and whether you were safe. He paused, then added more quietly, All our childhood memories came flooding back. I know we love our wives and children, Blackthorne said quietly, but few will understand that between men there exists a space where we can be entirely ourselves, where we can share the burdens of provision and protection. He paused, choosing his words with care. There are pressures we carry, Roger, that others do not always see or fully grasp. Burke asked quietly, That is true, but I am concerned. Where has Master James gone? Blackthorne gave a quiet, knowing laugh. Roger, isn't it obvious? He will eventually go to the one place where he can be most himself and where he can speak his truest feelings. Both men spoke at once. The lake. Lord Blackthorne and Roger returned to the blue room to speak with William and the others. Lord Blackthorne spoke gently. Master William, first you are forgiven. Your father and I were just recalling some of our own arguments at your age. We were no better. He softened further. Nothing has changed. You are still very much like a son to us, and Lady Camille, and I love you dearly. Your schooling will continue as before. A pause. However, you must speak with James privately. You should apologize, and more importantly, you must truly listen to him and understand why this happened. The truth is, Lord Blackthorne said more softly, James has never truly had a brother or close companion until you, William, and now his thoughts are turning to fear that someone might come between you. He paused. You have both been through near death together. That kind of experience binds people deeply. But Sir Blackthorne, William said, still unsettled, why would James think I would ever want to abandon him? We have plans together. Plans? Blackthorne asked quietly. Sir, if I may be frank, William said carefully, I think James is feeling considerable pressure about becoming the Earl of Blackthorne, and he is afraid of that responsibility. He has said that it feels overwhelming, especially after everything that has happened this year. He hesitated, then added more quietly, You and I both know he tends to think far ahead. He is a perfectionist, and he wants to make you and Lady Blackthorne proud. I have to be honest as well, William said more quietly. While I respect farming and the life my family leads, my own desire is to study and pursue something different for myself. He hesitated, and I do feel some of that pressure too. Blackthorne and Mr. Burke exchanged a knowing look and nodded. Oh, my son, Mr. Burke said gently, we understand. We felt those same burdens ourselves once. William spoke carefully. Sir Blackthorne, and please let me say it was terrible, unfortunate accident that James struck my mother. I am certain he must feel deep embarrassment, shame, and fear of the consequences. Blackthorne spoke calmly. Son, this is what we are going to do for now. James will return when he is ready, but I believe you know where he is. He paused before continuing. Perhaps this evening you may meet him in private and work through all of this with honest listening and maturity. That is what men do. Burke added quietly, Lord John and I have been close friends and like brothers for nearly 30 years now. What you share with James is something worth honoring and worth fighting for. William's voice softened with emotion. I agree. At that moment, Pritchard entered quietly with a cup of the blue elixir for William, along with a pot of soothing chamomile tea. Burke, Blackthorne, Constance, and Camille embraced William briefly, then left him alone in the blue room to rest and reflect. Lady Camille understood more about the true nature of the situation than she let on, but she also knew that as lady of the house, it was not her place to intervene further. It was for the boys to resolve this in their own way, on their own terms. She offered a quiet prayer and retired early to her chamber. Lord Blackthorne and Roger retired to the smoking room for a well-earned glass of whiskey. At 9 o'clock p.m., William quietly made his way to the lake. The moon was full, the night air mild, and a gentle fragrance of heather and spring florals drifted through the stillness. He moved carefully, almost silently, hoping to catch sight of James without startling him into retreat. As he suspected, James was sitting on his favorite stone bench, gazing out at the swans as they glided quietly and gracefully across the lake. The moonlight caught his hair, lifting soft blue-silver highlights from its dark surface. William thought, not without a quiet ache, that he had never seen him look more handsome. William quietly sat down beside him without speaking. James, however, could not bring himself to look at him. James suddenly broke into tears. William did not speak. Instead, he simply put his arm around him, holding him steady and allowing the moment to become a safe space for everything that needed to be released. James wept as though something long contained had finally given way. Years of loneliness during his parents' absences, and the quiet ache of feeling left behind. He released the memory of the harsh treatment under Crabtree, the injustice surrounding the accusation against Mr. Burke and William over the blue rose theft, and the terror of nearly being killed by Silas Grudge. He also released the memory of having to take a life to protect his mother. It was indeed far too much for a 12-year-old boy to carry alone. William spoke first, his voice quiet but steady. "You know I love you, right? Just because I was spending time with Molly and being kind to a girl who took the time to bake biscuits, it doesn't mean you are not my brother and my companion." James could not speak. He was too afraid to give voice to what he truly felt. "Nothing has changed, James," William said softly. "I still plan to spend my life with you. One day we will open our detective agency together." James spoke quietly. "William, I don't want the pressure of being the son of an earl. I just want to—" William understood instinctively. "Hey, James, let us just stay here together, just for a while." William gently took James' hand and kissed it, and led him to a quiet stretch of grass, scented with summer air and wild growth. They lay back together, looking up at the night sky. The stars shimmered above them, and the full moon glowed slowly with a warm, pearlescent light. James gradually settled, his breathing easing as his eyelids grew heavy. He felt a gentle kiss on his forehead, and William's quiet whisper beside him, "I've got you." James and William drifted into sleep, carrying a quiet new certainty. Whatever they might face in this unpredictable life, they would be all right. They would face it together. The gentle ripples left by the swans gliding across the lake shimmered in the moonlight, lulling the boys into a deep, peaceful rest, as if the night itself offered a soft promise of a new day.